If I can say, and please don't be offended if you feel like I'm picking you out, but I think very few companies enter these awards really, really well. Last year was the first year I was a judge, and I landed up reading 45 entries. Just that is a hell of an effort. But I think Ogilvy enter awards incredibly well. Atmosphere enter awards incredibly well. I remember a campaign from a company called Engage. I think they're in the room, I'm not sure. They, in the back corner there, I think they entered really well. And there's a group of others as well. But I think the overall standard of entries needs to be improved a little bit. And again, obviously you guys are committed to doing that. That's why you're here. So really, that's what this morning is about. And once again, I welcome you. I looked at and read campaigns last year, and I really, really got tired reading certain campaigns where the only point of reference to research or information to inform the campaign decision was, well, I phoned 3 journalists and these were the 3 answers. And it's like, oh my God, really? Is that it? In a zero budget campaign, and we do zero budget campaigns pretty much at FH. We've got some of those, and we've got some big money ones, and it's, we've got a spread, and we're entering a spread as well this year. Find research that matters, and you can find it. So simple stuff last year. Just for a tip for you guys, mention some research report that you found somewhere on the internet that informs the decision that you made. Come on, guys, that is absolute 101. Any research can be informed by something outside of phoning 3 journalists and doing a bit of media analysis. We're all doing that. So I do, no matter if it's a zero budget campaign or a big budget campaign. I'll be honest, I don't think research terribly informed your campaign, if I remember correctly. I haven't read it for about a year. But it wasn't a research analytics driven campaign. You'll see, I'm going to go through categories and sectors now, and we've added one on pure research and analytics because I think that's a huge growth driver for the industry. So we added a campaign. I don't know what's going to come out of it. It's going to be hell of interesting to see. But your campaign, if I remember correctly, it wasn't a deeply analytical campaign. But yeah, it's just getting that spread right. Yeah. And I'll talk to that in the categories and sectors now, if I may. I want to talk, just before I start my presentation, the things that got my attention as a judge. Who here has actually judged? Anyone? No. Okay, things that got my attention. Again, get into the mindset of the person that you're writing for, reading your campaign as the 10th campaign he or she's read that night at 9:30 and they're tired. Write it that way. Write it in a, use the categories, use the criteria as mentioned, let one flow into the next. And this is a massive outtake. Reading all of the campaigns I read last year, somebody would write statement of the problem. And it was almost as if they got somebody else to write, the research piece, and someone else to write the plan. And I would say 1 in 10 at best, actually let the information flow into the next. Statement of the problem informed, because the problem was as such, we decided to do the following research or pull the following research. And we did the following. The research told us X, and that informed, what's the next criteria of the research? That informed our planning. And our planning was as such because our research, and let one flow to the next. And as you get to the end, bring it right back to the beginning. If you just get that right, I promise you'll get a bronze award at the very least. And then if you do some decent work, you'll get even better awards. I can absolutely assure you of that. Bring your campaign to life as well. And this is old school selling and not telling. Put in a couple, the awards this year are all going to be not JPEGs, Acrobat files or PDF files. Put some pictures in it. Bring it to life. Don't put reams and reams of press coverage. We get that. That's what we all do. Bring it to life with some pictures at the event or at the execution or at the result or something, just to liven it up for that judge who's reading it at 9:30 at night, just to make it exciting. Keep your forms very kind of nicely presented, the document that you'll read. And again, I don't know if you've got your actual entry here. Ogilvy did that really well. No main agency involvement. It was just a clear, crisp template. Fleischman Hillard, I thought ours was crap. I gave it to somebody else in the business. I purposely didn't read all our entries last year, and I was embarrassed. I thought our setup, our template was bad. There was sometimes we had about that much information on a page. It just didn't work. We had graphics that were oversized that meant nothing to anybody. It just didn't work. Ogilvy really got it right. I remember Engages was crisp and clean and clear. So get that right. Use a nice size font. Use 1.5 spacing to make it easy for the guy or the person to read. So those are things that I could just talk about against Marilyn's presentation. So before we go into the actual categories and sectors, I just want to tell you the background, because if you understand that, you'll understand, in my eyes, what I think the PR industry needs to achieve, and I think the PRISMs would be the major driver for this. I came out of the PRISMs last year. I wasn't excited about life in general, and I'm being frank, and there are PRISM people in the room. I thought the judging criteria was fine. I thought the overall winner was fine, but I was like, meh,
Sunday night, anyway. So that was that. And then I had a meeting with the people. I thought to myself, I could be one of those guys who moans, or I could be one of those guys that tries to get involved in finding a solution. And there is really great work being done by Bridget van Holt and Marilyn and Catherine, who was in the room earlier, she's at the back, and various other people. And I went and saw the guys because I was starting to get a bit involved with PRISA, and there was one sentence which really surprised me. Somebody said in that first meeting, we want the PRISM Awards to be the preeminent awards in our industry. So I said, okay, that's cool. How are we going to do that? And my very next question was, how can we be the preeminent awards in the industry if we don't have a campaign of the year? And I'll tell you how that worked in the past and how it's going to change this year. We don't have a campaign of the year as it stands. We have an overall gold winner, but the gold winner comes out of a category that just exceeded in a specific category. So when there was a discussion about the 5 or 6 main gold winners that were going into kind of the pot for the overall winner, they were being judged on different criteria, which I didn't think was right. There was a major discussion around a digital agency that did a fantastic campaign, but it was a fantastic digital campaign. And really the discussion was they could be the campaign of the year. And I was like, it's a digital campaign. They did blogger outreach, they did some social media stuff, they did some cool stuff. They did it really well, but it's this big in an industry that's this big. We can't have them as the overall winner. For me, the most all-encompassing campaign last year that was well executed was the Ogilvy campaign. They used social, they used digital, they used traditional, they used some above-the-line stuff, but they really had the broad spread. So that's for me why I was interested in their campaign. So getting back to the preeminent awards, I believe very firmly we needed campaign of the year, and that's why there's a category this year called campaign of the year, and it's got different measurement criteria. I'll talk to that in a second. We also, to be the most preeminent awards in the industry, we didn't have agency of the year. I mean, you guys won the PR campaign of the year at PRISMs, and I think you won Tony Kunderman's agency of the year. Now, if ever, who's entered Tony Kunderman's agency of the year? No disrespect to Tony Kunderman, nice guy, but it's a crap award. Like, there's a table, and he judges on how many people you employ. Like, just before I do the criteria, I'll just go and hire 20 interns and go be agency of the year. Come on, that's ridiculous. So we needed to get agency of the year, and there, to your point, and that wasn't also good enough because I can't compare a 60-person agency to a 6-person agency. That's just not fair. So we've got 3 levels of agency of the year. I think that's very, very fair. It's up to 10 people is the first one. I think it's 11 to 29 is the middle category, medium-sized agency of the year, and above 30 people is the large agency of the year. And I think that's fair. Again, feeding back to the preeminent agency, preeminent awards in the industry. The last criterion, and for me the most important, and we're going to make a small step this year, and I'm hoping in 2015 there's going to be a step change. The most concerning thing to me at the awards last year was not anything to do with our industry. The most concerning thing was there was not a single client in the room. KFC wasn't even there, I don't think, at the awards. Tell me if they valued that award and they didn't even attend the awards. And I know we had a major campaign which I just think was really badly written, but it was a fantastic campaign from Nike. In my eyes, we've revolutionized running in this country. That's cool, that's fine. But the clients at Nike didn't think it important enough to attend the PRISM Awards. That is a fundamental problem as far as I'm concerned. We have got to ensure, and we've got a system to this, and I'm going to talk to that now, we have got to get some clients into the award ceremony. So if our clients are speaking on behalf of the importance of the awards and on behalf of the importance of winning these awards, I think the entire reputation of the PR industry will improve dramatically. So those are the 3 things we're trying to achieve. So if you understand that as a background, you'll understand everything else fueling into that. So some opening sentences, categories have been divided into practice and sectors. I'll go through that in a second. I talked about the objective, preeminent stuff. Storytelling. We also loosely use this concept of storytelling in meetings, and every client we go and see, we're going, we can tell your story, we're going to engage with your audiences, all this stuff. No entries did that. And that's why, and I'm going to talk to sort of the agency of the year and the individual awards, storytelling is encouraged. Because we've got to get back to a place where we can tell great stories. If our industry can't tell stories, no industry can. So if you look at the criteria for agency of the year is quite loose. It's not who's had the most dramatic increase in revenue. It's not who's employed the most people. It's not whose BEE scores the most. Those things are important. But it's who's going to tell their story the best, and bringing in those factors, bringing in their strategy, bringing in what they're trying to achieve, bringing in what they're giving back to the South African industry. For me, and I'm not on the agency I'm not on that judging panel, I would certainly hope the ability to tell that story will secure those awards, because we should be telling better stories. And I talked about the first time for the campaign. So just to jump into the detail, I'm not going to go through this in deep detail. I looked at all the awards last year, and there's a range, and you can actually see it looked like a house that's had renovations over certain years. There was a core group of awards, and 2 were added in 2005, and 3 were added the next year, etc. And I just thought it needed a little bit of reorganization. So the team of people that do the awards worked on this, and we came up with sectors. So if you're doing work in a specific sector, it sits on this diagram. I'm not going to go through each one of these. Most of them were there last year. Some of them are new. You don't need my interpretation here. A major issue for me was the judging criteria. Last year, or in the past, the judging criteria was across those 5 statements. I agree with those 5 headings. I think they're spot on. But statement of the problem, which is completely out of your control, attracts as many points as execution and planning, which is completely why you should be winning an award. So we've changed the judging criteria slightly. Statement of the problem, 10 points, research, 15 points, because again, speaking to your point about sometimes you can't afford the research. In most cases, frankly, you can't afford the research. So we've downgraded, and it's not a downgrade. Research is vitally important, but we've just shortened the points on that. And really for me, I would actually like to see this change again in the next couple of years. I'd love to see a shift more towards the creativity. The planning and execution for me is where it's at. If you nail that, you should be nailing everything else. So there's a slight change in the measurements up on the top right corner. As I said, going through here, there's a couple of changes, no great shakes. It's all pretty straightforward. Moving into the practices. This is essentially, so the first slide is who we work for, the industries. This is the practice. This is essentially the what we do. And again, looking through all of these, I judged the crisis communications category last year against those 5 criteria, and research for 20 points on crisis. It became almost null and void. I mean, you can certainly have a crisis system, you can have a theoretical approach, you can have all those things, but you don't have time to do research as a crisis hits. It hits. I mean, you mentioned a second ago that the judging is going to take place. The entries deadline is Valentine's Day. February the 14th is not Valentine's Day for me. That's the 1-year anniversary of the Oscar murder, or the Oscar case, sorry, because we work on Nike. That's what happened. That's what it is for me. I don't think my wife's getting flowers this year. So we didn't have time that morning. I'll tell you what happened that morning. I saw a tweet when I was driving to work at about 5:30 in the morning. Oscar, Riva is dead. Oscar's holding a gun. Blah blah blah. By 6 o'clock, calls were starting to be made. We had already done a first report. By 7 o'clock, we had pulled analytics. We knew where Nike was in the conversation. We knew what our story plan was by 9 o'clock that morning. We didn't have time for research. We didn't have time for statement of the problem. We just hit the ground running. We mobilized and we got things moving, as all of you do with a major crisis. So you can see again some of these. We've changed the criteria. It's anyone on the forms with an asterisk. The measurement criteria is changed, and I think it's more fair. Certainly, some of this is an area where there are quite a few new categories. I'll mention some of them. Crisis management. I think it's been reworded slightly. Certainly, the measurement criteria has changed. Moving up onto the top right-hand side, social media for PR. Best use of social to lead a campaign. We're all using social in our campaigns. We're all using social for different things, no issue in the world. But have you got a campaign that's been led by social? And I think that's vitally important. And I think that's where the distinction is. For me, it's just updated verbiage. And I think this will even change next year, because in 12 months' time, this will be out of date. Mobile media is a new category. Again, I think all of us are doing work in just purely mobile forums, things like Mixit and all the rest of it. That didn't have an obvious landing place in 2013. It does now, in my eyes. The third one was event management. And I kind of had a fundamental issue with that, because we all kind of can manage an event, and who knows if your press conference is better than mine, or your award ceremony is better than yours, and who cares? So we changed the words there to best use of an event to build or change your reputation, because that's what we fundamentally do. So the storytelling against events, I'm hoping for a shift there. I think that's very, very important. On your point again, you talked about PR on the shoestring. We had a long conversation about do we put an amount of money, a campaign for under 30 grand or under 10 grand or whatever it is. We decided not to, but I need you to know that was discussed at length. What actually constitutes a shoestring? And we didn't have a conclusive answer, but it's just a small amount of money. African PR campaign, that is a new category. Again, we are certainly at the business I run, we're doing a lot more African work. And again, I thought there should be a category for that, and the crew agreed. So we've got that as a new category. International PR campaign, new category as well. And I think we've done a bit of work on the student campaign of the year. Again, we want to involve more students and get them actively involved in the PRISMs. So you can see, at the very least, I think just thinking, a group of people sat down and went through all the entries, went through everything. And I think we've made strides. An obvious category to me that I think we have missed is African Agency of the Year. At the moment, the only African Agency of the Year award that I know of is the Sabre Award, the European Sabre Awards through the Holmes Report does an African Agency of the Year. And they're pretty good at it. I mean, that's fine, but we should be owning that as well. Hopefully we add that in next year. We just didn't get to it this year. If we move that forward, we again looked at some of the individual awards. I'm not a huge fan of these, I'll put my hand up, but other people are, and that's fine. So we've done a bit of work on the individual awards. I think the criteria is pretty straightforward. But again, for me, it's the story behind this. Tell a great story, and get that moving. I can guarantee you now, Fleischmann Hillel will win none of those because we won't enter them. So that's up to you guys. And this for me is the most exciting, the last two. The agency of the year is outlined, and there is 2 paragraphs against each one of these where there are subtle differences in the entry criteria, because I think there are differences in the different sized agencies. I've only cut and pasted one into this presentation, but I really encourage people to enter that. I would love to see a strong showing there. I'd love to see everybody, no matter who wins, sort of joining and applauding the company that does win. But again, I'll go back to the concept of storytelling. There are certain things that you do need to put in, things like revenue increases, people numbers up and down, top 5 clients, length of relationships with these clients, staff turnover, BEE credentials. But all of that should be in there in a storytelling form. And again, I think this is hugely exciting. And I would certainly hope that the winners of those 3 awards, we all of a sudden, almost the PR section of Tony Kunderman's awards become irrelevant, as far as I'm concerned, because his judging criteria, frankly, is very, very shoddy. He doesn't understand this industry as well as the people judging these awards. So I'm hoping this is the major step change for PRISM. So that's where we are as an industry. And this, my last slide, is Campaign of the Year. And the objective here, I mentioned it up front, the objective here and the thinking here is to get more clients to the room, to put more emphasis on this and to make clients want to win this award. I mean, I know as we're a standalone PR agency, and to get our clients to sign off on our entries or to contribute to our entries is a freaking nightmare. But if we get our clients wanting to win this and we get our clients putting pressure on us to win these awards, then we've made significant steps forward. And that's obviously a 2 to 3 year plan. This is a start, so please work with us on this. The way Campaign of the Year is going to work this coming year, or for the first time actually, it does replace the overall Gold Award. And as I mentioned earlier, that was just all the Gold Awards, and then they discussed which one was the best. This is the Campaign of the Year. So if you've got a campaign that you fundamentally think should win Campaign of the Year, you should be entering it in here. And I don't care if that is a small agency, a big agency, a zero-based client, or a R1 million a month client. It does not matter to me. All those things get taken into account. I'm looking at Engage because your entry last year, you did the mining entry where you dug a massive hole. It was a really good entry, but there wasn't this campaign. It would have been entered into the wrong place last year. If you had done that work this year, you'd be entering it into your category, or I'm sure you'd be entering your category, your sector, and you would probably enter it into Campaign of the Year. So you'd rewrite it slightly differently for 3 different places, and it would certainly have been, judged then on the same criteria. And that for me was the issue. So there's overall Campaign of the Year. The measurement criteria are the same as the first area, 10, 15, 25, 25, 25. And then for 10 additional points, the intangible magic and the X factor. I realize how loose that is. I'll tell you what turned me on dramatically about Ogilvy's campaign. Very simple example, and you'll get what my thinking was. The Ogilvy campaign, I'm probably stealing all your thunder, but I read it. It was rock solid. They did a lot of good stuff, but frankly speaking, it wasn't like freaking out of this world. It was just rock solid. They crossed all the T's, dotted the I's, they got stuff done, they executed against objectives. But the one little bit of magic, and I don't know who wrote it, they did an incredibly good job. The guy, they hired a cyclist to ride across the country eating, the average meal of the average South African to see if he could sustain. That's essentially what they did. But the major word for KFC is the word hope. He wrote the word hope across the country. That's the X factor. That's the little bit of magic for me. That's why I voted for that campaign, because they just did that one last step of thinking. They executed a really good campaign, and there was that little bit of magic that made it different. And that's what I liked. We're going to see that in more places. They were the only one that I read that just had that little bit of difference. And that's, for me, it just jumped ahead. They were guys that just thought beyond the obvious and the really good work. They made good work great by just doing that. So what's going to happen with these campaign of the year? I think the campaign of the year will be the heaviest entered category. I certainly hope it will be. I anticipate we're going to have 30, 40, maybe 50 entries into this category. And what we're going to do is Marilyn has organized a judging panel for that. I can't remember who the judges are, but Marilyn leads that panel, and that's tremendous. And out of the X number of entries that we get, the judging panel will choose the top 5. That's it. The top 5 get pulled out. Those companies get informed, and they will present to a panel of celebrity-style judges. A CEO of a company, we've got this panel lined up already, someone like Jeremy Maggs, Ashraf Garda, the CEO of a company, a marketing manager of a company, somebody from the marketing industry, and I think Marilyn's the 6th judge in that category. So what happens, just to jump back again, 30 entries or so, your group of judges get to the top 5, those 5 get informed, and they get given a date where they get given an amount of time to present their campaign with the client. Critical moment with the client in that room, because I'll tell you what happened to me. I read an entry last year, and I have to apologize, I'm in the industry, and that's what you can't hide from as a judge. So I read a campaign, and it's a good campaign, very well written, very well put together, and then I'm looking at this campaign, and I'm going, but that client, that was executed in May last year. We pitched on that client in June. So they fired that agency in May. That's not cool. So the reason why we want to involve the client, if the client will stand up next year, and I can almost guarantee you KFC would have stood up next year and presented that campaign, that's brilliant. So we want the client to present with the agency, because then all of a sudden the client is in the process. We want all 5 of those clients obviously to be invited to the awards dinner and to attend. We obviously 1 in the 5 will win. That's what we're after. So you can see it's a little bit of a long way to get the clients involved. This is a first year where we want to get at least 5 clients into the room of the major campaigns and a bit of competition out of that, and hopefully that gets extended in the years to come. And I think, again, that is vitally important. There's some problems to that. Nicola Nell at Atmosphere said, okay, Laka, what happens if the client's in Cape Town? Obviously, that's a problem. So we have to get around that. We've got Mango as a sponsor. We'll fly Cape Town-based clients up for that presentation if we have to. We'll Skype them in if we have to. We'll do anything we can to make this happen, because I think that is the cornerstone. I'm hoping that the agencies of the year and the campaign of the year is the step change that we want to achieve this year. The good news is the other 4, the runners-up essentially, will all then win silver awards for campaign of the year, and then there will obviously be 1 overall winner, which I think is tremendous. So essentially, that's what we've done from a categories and from a categories point of view, from a measurement point of view. I've seen the judging process. I think it's absolutely tremendous. I would encourage more of you to get involved in the judging process, especially the bigger agencies, not pointing fingers, especially the more digital shops. I think we need more digital people judging awards. But again, the judges for this year are settled down. Hopefully we get more people involved next year. That's me.